You obviously have been able to log into Zoom since you're here. So that's your first step. Many of you are going to be familiar with some of the features of Zoom because you've been using it. For some of you who may not be, a couple of things that I would like to note. The layouts are slightly different on different devices, different screens. There are differences between Windows, Android, Apple iOS, so forth. But in general, the icons stay pretty much the same. Up at the top of your screen, in most cases, there will be a couple of options that will either say speaker view or gallery view. I'm going to take away the spotlight on me because some of you will not be able to see that unless I go back to the other view. But up at the top, you will either see something that looks like a table with three heads behind it and the words speaker view, or you may see something that reads gallery view with a number of things that are supposed to represent heads. If you click on those alternately, you will alternate between a view that shows the speaker, who is either the person who is speaking the loudest or the person who has spotlighted themselves or has been spotlighted, or you will get the little video clips of everyone who's on the call. And those are scrollable lists. In this case, if you are in gallery view, I think there are, on my screen at least, 8 pages that I can scroll to see everybody. If you are in speaker view instead of gallery view, you get that person's screen, but then you get a scrollable list up at the top of everyone. Down at the bottom, there are a couple of icons. There's a microphone, which right now we have muted most of you unless you are an active participant in the assembly. So most of you actually cannot unmute yourself. But when we get to the assembly, if you are recognized to speak, you will then be able to unmute yourself at the time when you are recognized. There's more about that in one of the videos and instructions that are on the assembly website and the YouTube site on how to gain recognition. And I refer you to that as well as to all the videos and instructions that are on the Synod website and the YouTube site for more information on a number of things that go beyond what we're going to be covering tonight. Also along the bottom of your screen, I want to highlight 2 other things. You should see a couple of heads with a number next to it, which is currently 150. Clicking on that, that icon opens up in alongside or in a parallel screen a list of people who are on the Zoom meeting call. So you can look at that at any time. Clicking on it opens that window up. Clicking on it again closes it. Again, where that list appears may be device dependent. It's most often on the right, but particularly if you are using a smaller screen or a tablet, you may need to swipe in order to see that list. Also down at the bottom on my screen, and probably on most of yours, next to that is another box that says chat and has a voice bubble icon above it. That one is going to be very important because you will need to have that open during the regular assembly if you want to gain recognition on the floor to ask a question, make a motion, comment, amendment, whatever. There's a procedure for that, and again, I would refer you to the videos and instructions that are elsewhere for those details. Tonight, we are going to be using the chat box as a way of collecting questions as they come in. So I would encourage you to keep that open. And if there are things that come up we will either try to answer them in context, or if we have time at the end, answer them during a question and answer session. I know one question that has come up already is, how do I rename my screen name on there? There are several ways of doing that. One is that if you can find your own picture in the mix, you can right-click on that, and you will see a menu that includes rename. So that's one way, probably one of the easiest ways. I think I'm not seeing anything currently in the chat box as far as questions. So I think at this time we will move on. Again, if you do have questions relating to the Zoom screen portions, I would encourage you to look at the videos that are on the YouTube site, the various question and answer comments that are on the Synod website. If there's something else, please again, click on chat, open up that, and send a message to everyone, and we'll try to get back to questions and answers later if we have time. At this point in time, however, I'm going to move along. You should have all received, all of you who are voting members, instructions over the weekend on how to log into the Turning website or the Turning app. And that included information about not only the login, but a password that was particularly for you. I hope that you've already had a chance to activate that, but we're now going to move on to some Turning information. And so at this time, I am going to spotlight Tim, who is going to lead us through that. And I believe he just turned his mic on. So, Mr. Barrage?
I'll turn it back off if you don't want it on. I'm good without it on. All righty. Well, hello and welcome to the Turning Point voting tryout session. If you haven't already signed into Turning Point, I'd like you to do that now. Marilyn, if you'd like to take over the screen for a moment and show your screen as you log into Turning Point. She already has the page loaded up. If you opened your web browser and went to the address screen at the top, the address bar, and typed in ttpoll.com, that will take you to the Turning Point sign-in page. As she signs in and enters her username or her email and password, she is now logged into Turning Point. In a moment, I'm going to show you how to do that on a few other devices, but right now, she's showing you how to do it using a web browser, and that is the second best method of doing this, having your web browser open for both the Zoom, which is the meeting that we're in, as well as Turning Point voter software. Having those two windows open, I'll show you a little trick in a minute of how to make that a little bit easier to handle. But her signing in on her web browser on her computer is very similar to signing in on it if you're dealing with your phone or a tablet. Just depends on if those things will work. So if you're watching today and you're thinking, well, I'm just going to watch this and observe and everything will work out fine for me come voting time, I strongly encourage you to sign in using these techniques so that you can test to see if your system will work when it comes to voting on the day that we need to vote. So open up your browsers, open up Turning Point, and sign in. And as you can see on Marilyn's window, it says, hello, Marilyn. Once you sign in to Turning Point, it will go from hello guest to hello whatever your name is. And at that point, it leaves this window open. It's called the session ID window. At certain points of each vote, I will be giving out a session ID code. And that is what goes in that box. Today, Marilyn's going to sign in with this session ID code, which is 735809. Now, I encourage everyone that's listening, that's on this Zoom internet meeting, to write down this code. And again, it's 735809. It's going to be a good idea to have a pen and pencil handy for you. So when a screen comes up, which I'll be showing you shortly, that shows you this code, you'll be able to write it down just in case you get disconnected from the actual Turning Point software. You can re-enter that code and get back into an active session. Now, this is the screen you'll see after you log in. Polling closed. That's because I am in charge of the polling and I haven't opened up the application to show any polling slides. Now, I'm going to ask Marilyn to back out of the shared screen, and I'm going to take over the shared screen by sharing screen number 2. Let me move this out of the way. And now I will share that. Okay, so now you're seeing my desktop, and you see 2 internet browser windows open. One up in the top left side that I've just highlighted is the Zoom meeting application in the browser. I clicked on the connection in my email that I got for this meeting, and this is what popped up. Now, if I clicked Open Zoom Meeting in this window, I'd get kicked out because I'm not supposed to be in the meeting twice. So I don't want to click on that right now, but that is one window that will open up and you will connect with Zoom. Now, the second window, I've opened up a web browser, and I'm going to do the same thing that Marilyn did, and I'll type in ttpoll.com and hit return, and it will open up the browser to the Turning Point application. I will sign in as well. As you can see, I would put in my email address and then hit sign in, and then I'd put in my password and then click sign in again. Of course, I've done this already, and I hope that you'll have done this before the meeting starts on Friday, because it makes it a lot easier that you can actually just click it twice and now be logged into the system. So now I'm at the same window that Marilyn was at, and as you can see, it went from hello guest to hello Tim. So now I'm going to sign in to that code session as well. Where did I go? It's 735809. All right, so now I'm logging into that session. As you can see, my window shows polling is closed. Now, the reason I did this today, it's a little bit different than I did it yesterday, is I believe that some of the issues we were having about people not seeing the actual voting buttons in their Turning Point app was because they were actually observing the meeting in the Zoom application and didn't realize they weren't back in the Turning Point app where the voting actually occurs. So if you're using Zoom and Turning Point on the same computer, you're going to have to set it up similar to what I have on my screen, that you'll have 2 windows that you can access independently. Now, this would have loaded up the application, and you would have to resize or minimize that screen to get to the Turning Point app. But you have to realize you'll be jumping between these 2 if you're on the same device. I want to tell you a better method of doing this, and that is using a laptop to enter into the Zoom meeting and using a phone or a tablet to enter into the Turning Point app. And I'm going to demonstrate how I sign in on a tablet first. This is my little Kindle tablet, my Kindle Fire tablet, which is perfectly good for the use of voting. And I will enter into the browser, which is actually called Silk. It's called the Silk browser in Kindle. Now, this browser has not been tested by Turning Point, but it works. Let me tell you, I've already tested it out. It works. So if you happen to have this browser or this device, you can vote using it. All right, so now I'm going to sign in. As you can see, it says Turning Point, sign in. Let me reverse myself real quick so you can actually read this. Oh, goodness.
Yeah, Tim, you've still got the screen share up. So
Yeah, I got the screen share up, so I'm not going to be able to reverse it. You can actually tell the difference. That's just harder to read what I'm doing. But it is obvious what I'm doing. Hold on a second. Let me lower that. As you can see now, I've opened up the password window, and now I'll click sign in because I previously signed in and had it save the window and the username and password. So now it says, hello, Timothy. That's my second login for Turning Point software. That little box that appeared up on the right side, that was saying that this software may not. What's that?
Tim, again, we've got the screen share up, so we're not seeing your spotlight of you.
Okay, well, you could, if you can open up my, you can actually pin my picture on the side.
Yeah, but what you got to remember is there are 150 people that are trying to find that right now.
Okay, well, I was hoping I could actually pin it. Pin video. How's that? Does that pop up now?
I can't speak for others, but not on mine.
It hasn't come up on yours. If you go to the top page, it should be at the top.
Anyone else comment? I don't see it.
You don't see it?
If you double click on Tim's image, it will switch with the current image he has, and then you can.
But I have to try, I and everybody else has to try to find Tim's image.
Huh. Well, I have the video pinned, and I don't know if that's just because I pinned it to me. It's only good for me. There's got to be a way of having my camera pinned as well.
Tim, someone mentions here that you can't pin while you're also screen sharing.
No, I just overrode it as the host. Now we're okay.
Okay, so I'm pinned now?
Yeah.
Aha. Okay, well then, let me start again on this thing. I basically used the Silk app, the Silk browser app inside my Kindle Fire, and I typed in TT poll in the address bar, put my email address in that sign in logins page, hit sign in, then put my password in, and this is the page we ended up on. And I'm trying to have it so that you can actually kind of see what's there. Now, in the top right corner, when I first logged in, Turning Point sent a little message, a little verification or a notification saying, hey, Tim, oh, there it is again. Hey, this might not work because it hasn't been a pre-tested software with Turning Point. But it works. We've tested it today. It works. So we can always try this out. All right, so this is the second piece of a device that I can sign in on. And now I'm going to log into the session by typing in 735809 and join session. Now what it does is it goes to the polling closed window. So now I'm seeing polling closed on my voting application here, as well as on my voting application that I'm sharing on my computer screen. I'm using two different logins to do this. Wouldn't be able to do this at the church or at the Synod Assembly because only one login would be permitted. Now, the one last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to do this login on my cell phone. Now, this is an Android phone. And it's just a normal Android phone. I go to the web browser app, which is right there. It's the Google Chrome web browser app. And surprisingly, I already have ttpoll.com loaded. Now, I want you to see this. If you put ttpoll.com into your search window, your app isn't going to load. It's going to end up giving you this list of craziness. So you want to go and actually enter it into the address window, the address bar window, and this will come up. And then you sign in like you would sign in. It gives you the bar to put your name, the email address in, and I will use, guess I'll use the NAO that time. Okay. All right, well, I'm going to use Gmail then. All right, and now I'm logged in, and I need to now put in the session ID, which I will repeat. It is 735809. Join session. And now on the third device, I've signed in as Tim, just a different Tim, because I have one that's Tima and one that's Timothy and one that's Tim. So now I have 3 different versions of signing in for Turning Point. This would not be able to be possible while you're doing the Synod Assembly. Let me make this clear. If you try to sign in again using your email and password to a second device, you will kick yourself from the first device because you are registered under a very specific email and password. Having multiple accounts isn't going to work. You have to use the email and password that the Synod Assembly sent you to use to log in to Turning Point. Just wanted to make that clear. Now, I'm going to get into the slideshow, and it's going to start sharing the second screen as I do this slideshow. I hope it just kind of goes smoothly. All righty. I want to go to this window. All right. So the session ID code that I gave you will now appear in your polling app. The application called Turning Point Software will now show the session ID. If you signed in with the code that we've given you a few times, that code will now appear. Now, if you're in the Zoom app, it'll also show there. This is where it might get a bit confusing. You might think, well, I can vote in the Zoom app. Well, you can't. The Zoom app is for the communications and the visual, but you won't be able to actually conduct voting through it. So if you're looking for a button in the Zoom app, you're never going to find it. It's not going to show up. You'll have to log into Turning Point Software. And as you can see now, my phone is showing the same slide that the Zoom is showing, but it's on my phone. So this is the voting app. The same thing with the tablet. It is now exited out. It is now showing the voting app, showing the session code. And that's a good indication that you're logged in and ready to vote. Now, the polling closed, a slide that is on your Zoom, or some static slide could be visible. Those are the things that you'll be seeing in your voting app, and you'll also be seeing them in Zoom. So be careful, make certain that you're looking at the right app so that you can pull up the voting when it's necessary. Now, as you can see, my screen is full with the slide that shows you my PowerPoint presentation. I am now going to press the Windows button on my computer and select a different window to show. And if I can find it, there it is, Turning Point. Now, this is my Turning Point software. I hope you guys can see that. You'll see a window on top of my display. Let me actually see what I see. Because I'm sharing, I guess I don't see that, do I? All right, so I go back to the main window. We're going to continue on with this session. So I'm hoping that everybody's logged in to Turning Point on some device that they can get access to the window or the device to do voting. Can I have thumbs up for folks that are signed in to Turning Point? Give your thumb up in the window. Let's see if everybody has their thumbs up. I'm going to start strolling through these things. There's a thumb up. Nope. Doesn't have it. There's a thumb up back there. All right. Do you have a second device that you're using to sign in, or are you using the same computer that you're actually using Zoom with?
Tim, they don't have access to speak. They're going to have to respond in the chat windows.
Okay. All righty.
And, you know, to some extent, these are things that are going to have to go to help and be answered there, because we really don't have time to answer individual problems for 100 and what are we up to now? 159 people.
Yeah.
This will be
All
a
right.
very long phone call, a very long Zoom meeting if we try to do that.
Yes, let me take a drink. All righty. So if you're not connected, I want you to send an email to assembly@neos-elca.org. Tell them what your situation is. If you're using 2 devices, if you're only using 1 device, and tell us if you're having problems with the username and password for the login. Tell us the specifics of what's going on so they can help you better figure out what you can do to fix that. Now, let me be clear. Sometimes a device that you try to log into Turning Point just isn't going to work out. You might have to switch to another method of connecting with Turning Point to make voting possible. The same thing goes if it's too confusing switching between windows on your laptop to back and forth. You may want to find another method to connect with the Turning app outside of your laptop. I recommend that separation because it makes it a lot easier. You're not switching windows and trying to open and close things. You just have to turn your phone on or look at your screen. And having those two separated makes it a lot easier. Now, to get into the voting, for those that have logged in and signed up, the screen is up and it's showing you the session ID code. Now, if you haven't already done it, I want you to enter that code into the session ID box and hit join session. This screen will show up in the app, and now we will move on to voting. Now, again, the session ID is 735809. All right. Now you can see a question that has opened, polling is open on the screen, both on your Zoom app, which doesn't have any buttons at the bottom to vote with, and also on your Turning Point phone or tablet or other PC that you're using to log in to the actual voting app. Most votes taken at this assembly are going to be fairly simple with limited choices. Our first test vote is a simple multiple choice selection. You will notice the question is at the top of the screen. The possible answers are listed down the left side, and buttons appear with corresponding numbers associated with the options that are shown at the lower portion of the voting application. If you don't see buttons, make sure you're in the actual Turning Point app and not just looking at Zoom, because they won't appear in Zoom anytime in the near future. It just won't happen. Now, you can vote at any time. When you touch the buttons at the bottom, they will light up. An indication, when they do light up, that is an indication that you have selected that choice. You can make a change in that choice by merely selecting a different choice. For example, I first started out saying, I feel excellent today, but you know what? I'm a little nervous, so I guess I could be better. So I changed my answer to 3. But wait, I feel good. Today went well. I got a lot done, so I'm going to go back to 1. Since polling has remained open, I can change my vote that many times. Now, I'm going to close polling. So if you haven't yet voted, do so really quick. We got a lot of voters going on right now. Do so really quick so we can get your vote selection in, and we will then show the results of that vote. During the real assembly, depending on what is being voted on and when, we will either receive reports of the vote right after they've been verified, or those results will be transferred for counting and validation. In this case, let's see the results. I'm closing polling. All right, you can see that polling is closed. Now, for me to show you the results, I do this. Now, on your Zoom screen, you can see the results of this vote. It shows that we have 55 that have said this is that they feel excellent, 34 say that they're doing okay, 21 could be better, and one person is asking for help. Make certain you fill out that application, that email address, and email help desk so that they can get you the help that you need. And if it's a medical emergency, hang up and dial 911. We don't want you to be in an urgent situation. All right. Let's take a step back and see what this looked like if you were using the app on your desktop. Now, of course, you'd have to exit out of the Zoom, not exit out completely, but reduce the Zoom window and show the Turning Point application in its browser window. And this is how that might look. As you can see, the question is listed at the top of the viewing page and the options listed down the left side. Buttons corresponding to those answers are at the top, or buttons corresponding to those answers are at the bottom of the app window or web application. When you touch the buttons at the bottom, they will light up. This is an indication that you selected that choice. Now, I want to make you aware, you're not seeing the video in the voting application. You're seeing a static screen that shows just one image of the video. If you're watching the video, you're in the Zoom application and watching the meeting. All right, so if you decide that you wanted to make a different selection, simply touch the bottom of the, I touched the bottom differently and I changed my response. As I walked you through and I said I felt great and then I could do better and now I feel great again. That's how I did this video. All right, the next step is when I close the voting, which we're not voting right now, this is just a video. I close the voting and at the bottom of my screen, you can see my answer. Your answer was 1. So that demonstrates that I submitted that vote and that was the vote I submitted. All right, now we switch back to the static screen. This is going to be the screen you see a lot because this is the screen that we're going to have up right before polling begins or a vote is being taken. This will indicate that you've logged in successfully to the session and you're ready to vote. That's in your application for voting, you're cool. If it's just in your Zoom app, you still might want to enter in the session ID code. Okay, the next slide. This might be what you see sometimes when you come back to your voting application. You may have to enter in another session ID. That session ID will be given to you just prior to any voting occurring. That will be shown on your screen for a very short time. So again, I want you to realize you probably want to have a pen and paper handy so that when that does go on the screen, you can write it down and know that's the next session code for the session that we're coming up on voting. Those will be shown just prior to the voting taking place. It's one of the methods that we have as securing the fact that you're participating in the assembly by you getting that code because you're watching. Other folks that are just walking down the street can't enter into this vote without somehow miraculously knowing the session ID code. You're watching, you've got it. All right, so it's a good idea to write down the session ID anytime they appear. So if your screen goes blank and you lose the connection, you can re-enter it and rejoin the session. If a session has been ended, you're gonna see this screen anyway. So you're gonna have to wait to enter your session ID until the next voting session occurs. All right, again, we're just repeating this. If you haven't already signed into Turning Point, this is the session ID code that you would want to be using. We haven't changed it. It's just the same session ID. So if you're seeing this on your voting application, you're in the right place. If you're not, if it still says polling closed or that session, it says sign in, you may have to re-sign into Turning Point. All right. For those that haven't already signed in, you can do so now if you now have that opportunity. The number is back up on the screen, 735-809. All right, I'm moving ahead to the next question. We're going to try this again, but without all the other stuff in the mix. Another topic to vote on, simple with limited choices. The question is listed at the top of the screen, and the choices are listed in numerical order. Buttons corresponding to the options appear in the lower portion of the voting application or browser. When you touch the button at the bottom, they will light up. This is an indication that you selected that choice. If you decide that you want to make a change in your selection, simply touch the different button of your desired choice to make it. You can change your response as long as polling remains open. Once polling closes, that choice is considered final. I just closed polling. I didn't mean to, but I did. We had 104 responses at that point. Let's look at the results. All right, looks like we had a very similar response. Easy peasy is the best answer. I like that one. I think I got this good. I'm glad we did another one, good. And I am lost. Well, we got more people. We had one person looking for help last time, and now we have 3 people asking for help. But I'll tell you, you voted, so that's a positive thing. For those that haven't been able to actually enter a vote, definitely email assembly@neos-elca.org and tell them about what's going on so they can help you get connected. All right. In between voting stages, the screen will either return to a static logo like this, and that'll also appear on your Zoom window occasionally. It depends on what the live stream people will be presenting to you. You may see a camera, you may see a slide, you may see a heading, but in your app, this will be a standalone static screen that you might see on a regular basis. Don't worry, you don't have to take any additional steps before the next polling action occurs. You're logged in and ready to vote. Now, because of the requirements of the voting process for Bishop this year, there are a couple more complex votes that will be required. We're now going to review the process for the second ballot for Bishop. The general layout will remain the same, with the question or item to be voted upon appearing at the top of the screen, and instead of buttons showing multiple choice options, a text box will appear. This text box will be where you enter your choice. Another button appears when this text box is present, a little airplane, which is the button you will press to send your vote to be counted. There will not be a list of possible answers on your screen when you're dealing with the vote on Friday. Understand that vote will be emailed to you during the assembly, and you'll have to review that list at some point and make your selection. I encourage you to make that selection, highlight your choice, write it down on a piece of paper so that when this vote comes up, you will have your vote ready and you'll only have to enter in your numeric code into the box and hit send. All right, the whole reason we're not submitting a list on the screen is that we're certain that the list is going to be so many that to get them on one screen, it would be impossible to read any of them. So we're not going to do that. We're going to send out an email that lets you review those lists in a readable format, and you'll make your choice from that large list and keep it for when the voting occurs. All right, remember, the numbers to the right of the name are the numbers of the votes the person received on the first ballot. If you enter any of the numbers to the right of their name, it's not going to do you any good. Look to the number to the left that identifies their numeric code that you will enter for the vote. All right, once again, I want to remind you the session ID is 735-809. If you haven't already logged into Turning Point and you just now got the opportunity to, here is the session code so you can join us for this next vote, 735-809. All right, now this isn't going to happen during the Synod Assembly. You're not going to see a huge list like this come up on the screen. you're going to get an email that lists the names and the numbers beside them. We are using this slide to indicate what your answer is going to be. Pick one of those words, pick a color, pick an animal, pick a fruit, and then select the number to the left. I want you to make that selection now. Write down the number that corresponds to that answer and save it for when we come back to vote, which will be very soon. So make your selection now, write it down, and remember that selection. And somebody is drawing. One of the folks can actually turn off scribbling. Okay. Now, when voting on the second ballot for bishop opens, it's your turn to enter the number into the response box and click the airplane to submit your vote. Now, I have heard that on some devices, there's a little text box or a little chat box that appears right over top of the airplane. There is a method of dealing with that. Now, for some reason, it didn't show up this time. But the way to deal with it is if you have your device in this position and you then see that text box or that text bubble show up right over your button, turn your device horizontally and it will raise up above the button to submit. So you'll be able to submit your vote by clicking on the airplane. So now I want you to all enter in the number that you selected from the list we had up on the screen just moments ago. Make certain that you enter your numeric code into the box and click the airplane to submit your vote. As we said before, your vote can be changed. If you decided that you didn't want to choose elephant, you can choose another one. You can choose orange, but you need to know the number of that and be able to put that back in and then hit submit again. Now, this can only happen during polling, so make certain that you get it done before polling closes. Give you a little bit more time to put your votes in. We got a good portion of the folks that are here voting. So I think we're getting better at this as we go. This is good. All right, at some point, the person running the voting process is going to tell you that you have something like 15 seconds until polling closes. Use that information wisely. Don't wait for it to happen, then start typing in your answer. Make certain that you're pretty much done by the time they say that, because you don't want to try to type in a whole bunch of stuff, especially during the ecclesiastical vote, which we'll be talking about next. You don't want to be typing a whole bunch of stuff in and trying to get it done in 15 seconds because you're not going to be able to do it effectively. So vote early, and if you wanted to make a change, then do it, but don't wait until 15 seconds before the end of your vote to be able to submit. Okay, let's close the voting. Now, at the Synod Assembly, you won't see this screen come up. You won't see this voting report on your voting app or on the Zoom app or on the live stream, because this stuff will be taken by the Elections Committee via a database file, and they will count the votes, validate the votes, and organize the votes for presentation later on in the day. This is something that you're not going to get to see, but we got to see 17 and 18 were the favorite choices. I don't remember what those were, but good choices, whichever what they were. So we had 128 out of the 130 some people voting. That's awesome. Or 150 some people. That's a pretty good percentage. Okay. Once again, your voting app will go to your static screen eventually. And now we're going to talk about the most complex voting issue that we'll be addressing during the Synod Assembly, and that is the ecclesiastical ballot. Little history or little background information. Since the name of any person who is in good standing on the ELCA roster of ministers of word and sacrament is eligible to be nominated on this ecclesiastical ballot, the Bishop Elections Committee needs to receive those names and then review and verify. To do this in the most efficient way, and thus to be able to move on to the second ballot, please follow the instructions that are given at the assembly exactly. The ballot will consist of an answer typed into the response box so that the information can be downloaded into a spreadsheet, sorted and counted. The method of entering it into that input box will determine if that's going to be easy or not. So please pay attention to what I'm about to tell you. We're asking that you enter it. For the actual vote, there'll be 3 separate fields. Now you'll enter them into the same box, but you'll want to put a comma in between what you're typing. For example, hold on a second. For the actual ecclesiastical ballot, you will be asked for the last name, followed by a comma, followed by the first name, followed by a comma, followed by the current call, position, organization, or if they're retired, descriptor in the 3rd section. Now that has to be very specific so we can identify this individual and make them aware that they've been placed on the ballot to see if they actually want to go ahead with that vote. Now, we're going to go and we're going to try this vote today. Now, we're going to do this a few times for a few different ideas. And this is your session ID. If you haven't signed in yet, do so now. The session ID for this voting session is 735809. Sign in and you'll see this appear in your voting app. That means that you're in and ready to vote. Now, let's get to the first vote using the 3 field entry level. So I want you to tell me your favorite ice cream flavor, your favorite date, and your favorite season. And there's no specifics about how you enter any of these things. You don't have to be spelling out the date. You don't have to use forward slashes or dashes or whatever. Just do what you feel, but separate each of these answers with a comma. For example, I'll give you my answer. Ice cream flavor, vanilla, comma. Date, November 23rd. That's my daughter's birthday, comma. Season, spring. I love the flowers bloom. So that would be my answer. And I would type that into that box and hit send. Now, maybe I'll change the date because I'm sick of my daughter that weekend and I decide that it'll be Christmas. So I'll type in Christmas instead. Now, you don't have to put a date, or you can put your anniversary if you want, but you don't have to put the specific date. Whatever you want to answer, just separate each part of the answer with a comma, and then we will be able to tabulate and calculate what you answered. All right, you've had a little bit of time to answer. We only have 52 responses so far, so people are really typing. They must have really long names for their ice cream flavor that they like. So I'm going to give you a little bit more time to answer. Type in your responses into the box at the bottom, and don't forget to hit the little airplane to send your vote off. Remember, you can change your vote as long as polling is open. So if you decide that you don't want to list vanilla ice cream as your favorite, you can change that. But you'll have to put in all 3 answers with the commas again. You just can't change the first one and think that everything else will be clear. Fill out the complete answer, which includes 3 parts: flavor, date, season. Give it a few more minutes while people learn how to spell the season, I guess. I don't know. It's possible that they're not able to do that. Maybe. Alrighty, as you can see on the screen, it has rank and responses listed on the screen for the Zoom app. Oh, also on the voting app. Now, understand that's not going to appear on your screen for the voting app or on the screen during the Zoom meeting or on the live stream, because this information will be downloaded into a CSV file or some sort of a database file and taken by the election committee to address these votes and to verify these votes before they're actually reported. All right, so I'm going to give you 15 more seconds because we've got 133 people that have actually responded. So 15 seconds until polling closes. All righty, we're going to close the polling now. Now this is going to give us a report as to some of the responses, just the top 6 actually. Oh, I just opened it again. Hold on. I didn't give the computer long enough to actually register all the votes. All right. Wow, did somebody put my answer in? You can't see the full answer, as you can see. It makes it in capital letters, and it fills every little space that's available and puts the dot after it. So that is a good listing of the top 6. I like vanilla being the #1 choice for sure. All right, so that shows you what the database might reveal, and we're going to move on to trying this one more time. And this time, we require you to think back and choose from all the information you have available. For this question, it's all in your head. So make your choice and fill in the text box following the directions on the next screen. Well, actually, it's 2 screens away because I want to give more people, if they haven't already signed into the Turning Point app, the opportunity to do so if they now have that session ID screen available. The session ID for this voting is 735809. So log in if you haven't already done so. We're now moving to the next voting practice session. So take your time, think about your choice, pray about it, enter in your answer. I'll give you a few minutes to enter and submit your responses. Again, if you change your response, if you decide you don't like this specific teacher and you want to change their name, you feel free to do it, but you need to enter your full answer. Last name, comma, first name, comma, and the school that they were teaching at. All right, take your time, enter in your responses as you will. I did say it before, at some point, the individual leading the voting process will indicate that you only have a little bit more time left to get your responses submitted. So don't be bashful, don't be slow in that process. Start typing right away because you'll have plenty of time to make that decision prior to the assembly on Friday. So if you have someone in mind for the bishop-elect position, write it down on a piece of paper. Put these ideas in comma form so you know their last name, comma, first name, comma, and their position that they're currently holding, their current call, so that you're ready for that vote for the ecclesiastical ballot Friday morning, or Friday afternoon, actually. It starts after right about the time that the service ends. All right. We're getting people voting. People are voting, voting, voting. Keep them coming. Alrighty, we're going to give you 15 seconds to finalize your vote and to submit your selection for your favorite elementary school teacher. Again, last name, comma, first name, comma, school. Then hit submit. Alrighty, we're closing the polling. I hope. All right, we've closed the polling and we see some of the responses appear on the screen. Annie Aaron, Abby Aaron, Miss Allen. I like the Miss Allen and the Mrs. Allen. Now I did this with, I actually asked my daughter to fill out this, the test yesterday, and she put in Mrs. Barnhart, I think is the name, and that was what she put into the last name. I said, well, Mrs. isn't a last name. Mrs. is her first name if you don't know her real first name. I want to make certain that we're clear on exactly how you enter in your information for the ecclesiastical ballot. You don't have to put Reverend, you don't have to put their title. You put their last name, comma, first name, comma, and then their current call. And that's the descriptive section. You can fill it with a whole ton of information about where they live, what they're doing, all that kind of stuff. That's going to be the third part. The name has to be last name and then first name, all three fields separated by a comma. All right. One last polling question for you. I'm going to want you to answer this, and if anybody hasn't been able to sign in yet and they want to be able to, if they actually have that window open for the session ID to be typed in, here it is again, 735-809. If you're already logged in, you're ready to vote. If you have the actual ttpoll.com in your voting application, you know that you're logged in and ready to vote for this session. All right. Hopefully we got a few more people signed in. And now we're going to go for the last vote of the day. This is a tough question, so take your time and answer it when you will. So how confident are you about voting at Synod Assembly? All right, we got 15 seconds until the polling closes. All right, I'm going to be closing the polling now. I didn't show you the results of that, did I? Let me show you the results of that. No. There we go. There are the results. All right, 69 people said, got this, extremely confident. Good to hear that. 56 say that I think they'll be okay. So that's over 100 of the people that we had here saying that they're going to do okay. We had 0 people that asked for help at this point. So hopefully that means that the folks that had earlier said help are working, it's working for them now. Excellent. And 3 people said, can I get more practice? I'm not exactly certain we can do any more practice today, but maybe John can talk about that when he comes back on. So I just want to say thank you very much for participating today in this Turning Technologies voting application practice session. If you have any questions, I want you to email assembly@neos-elca.org. and they'll get responses back to you in a timely manner to help you get connected if you haven't been connected already, and maybe even get you some extra practice. I'm not exactly certain how they're going to work that, but we can maybe figure something out. I thank you very much for your attention, and I look forward to seeing you at Senate Assembly on Friday. God bless.
Okay. Thank you, Tim, for that thorough explanation. This is something that does take a little bit of practice, as some of you have found. There are a couple of things that came in chat that before we move on, and ask Karen Kaufman to take us through some of the process for the help desk, I want to make some attempt at answering. One of the questions was, should you be logging into Turning and stay logged in? The answer to that is yes.
Yes.
You definitely should, and you should stay there really through the entire assembly. We will be changing the session IDs for the various votes. And let me talk a little bit about that, because that's also some context that a couple of people talked about logging into Zoom and why and so forth. In the state of Ohio, to have a legal meeting, everybody must be able, if they wish, to fully participate in a meeting, at least by phone, if not visually. So that's the reason for the video, for the Zoom login and the complex ways for getting recognition. But Zoom by itself does not have enough adequate security features to guarantee that you can meet the requirements that you must be officially in the meeting and you must be in the meeting at the time. It's very unwieldy for the Credentials Committee to try to review that. So that's the reason for the session ID and the session ID changing between votes. Also, I did mention, if you remember back at the beginning, about how to rename so that your name appears on the screen by your photo or your video. That's because technically the Credentials Committee must be able to examine who's on the call, identify them, and make reasonable efforts to make sure that if you say you're you, you are you. If you don't rename yourself to something that's clearly a name that appears in the list of registered voters, and if we can't at least kind of figure out that the photo or the image that we see is likely that of the right person, it can become a little problematic for credentials. So we do ask that you rename your particular icon, your video, with your name as you registered. Again, for a lot of those questions, I'm going to refer you back to the videos and the other information. And if you need individual help, please contact according to the instructions that Karen Kaufman is about to discuss with us. Again, let me talk in those terms because we've been directing everybody to the assembly email tonight. Remember, most of those people are on this call right now and are going to be setting up at the Night Center tomorrow. So we may not get back to you right away. We will try to do that as promptly as possible before Friday. Tim went through how to open up browsers on cell phones. You might also look at downloading the Turning Point app. I mean, frankly, that's what I do personally. I have the Turning Point app on my phone, and that way I can be on the Zoom meeting on my laptop. Again, they're personal choices, but again, there's a video that talks about technology and some of the options for devices on the YouTube site. So I would recommend that to you. I think that's most of the things that I saw. Oh, one came up. Um, Pastor Muse said we have 6 voters at one location. How do we name that? If you have a site where for one reason or another you are logging in multiple people on a single Zoom site, I would suggest that you send an email to the office at elca.org site indicating who is there by name. That will be active at the Night Center on Friday and Saturday, and that can be passed along to the Credentials Committee for cross-verification. Don't forget too that the entire Synod Assembly will be live streamed on the Synod YouTube site. So from that standpoint, if you have a group together, then you can use the live stream as an easy way for people to see the entire assembly, and then the Zoom simply becomes a verification issue. So there are ways again around that, and I would refer you to, again, some of the other material that's already posted out there. Basically, though, as I said, if you have a group, simply indicate that, name it some appropriate thing, like, you know, 6 people at St. Paul's Church, Youngstown, is one that we actually don't have. And then send an email that can go to the Credentials Committee to identify who those people are. A number of people are asking again on renaming. I indicated one. There's a couple of things being said in the chat box. And again, there's some more information about that in some of the videos. I think I'm pretty well caught up on that. And at this point in time, I'm going to cancel my spotlight, and Tim's up here as the last person who talked the loudest. I'm not sure what that means. Oh, there was a comment about, could we continue to open things? We'll talk tomorrow at the Night Center. Possible. We can certainly open the Turning app and set up a session.
Yeah, that'll be set up very early.
But we'll go from there. At this time, I'd like to recognize Karen Kaufman and have her talk a little bit about the help process. So, Karen?
Thank you for unmuting me. Okay, I am going to post.
Sorry about that, Carl. I hit spotlight on the wrong one. So, Carl, sorry about that, but you don't get a place at this table. Karen, you're up now.
All right, thank you. I am posting now in the chat box the help desk contact information. And I want to share just a couple of things with you. One tip that I would like to give you, which will save you a call, is with your link to the Zoom portion of the meeting, it also states meeting code and password. Write that down and keep that in a handy place so that if there's just a kind of a glitch in your internet reception, which bumps you off Zoom, rather than having to go back and dig through your emails and find that link, you can just bring up zoom.us or open up the app. It'll say meeting ID. You will type in that meeting ID, type in the password, and you're back on Zoom. We have provided numbers there for you to call us. If you are referring to a power outage or an internet outage, if you can let us know, particularly if you're texting or emailing, what that location is, if you know how far the disruption in service is, how many people are at your site, if you feel that it's probably just maybe your location, but you're not certain if it's you or if it's 6 people, like if at in Alliance, if you can let us know, that we can make the Night Center aware of the fact that we have folks who do not have service. And this did happen in Western North Dakota. They had an entire city that lost power. So there had to be a delay in the voting. So that is just an instance of that. Any other questions that you have during the process of the assembly? Email or phone or text us, and we will get to you as soon as we can. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Karen. I'm not seeing anything else coming up in chat right now. One question came up. Instead, I mentioned sending a list if you're having a number of people on the Zoom call, sent to office@elca.org. That's going to be at the nights monitored at the Night Center on Friday and Saturday. And since the Credentials Committee is going to need to have that information there, it's better on Friday and Saturday to send that information to that address. Normally, we do not want to use that address for requests for help, but for a credential, it's something else. So we have to do that. But please, normally help questions would go to Assembly. And again, that's variously there. I've also picked up, there was one other question, where can I find the information on the agenda? And that is all in the Assembly pre-materials, which you should have gotten several emails that refer to its availability. And those are on the Assembly website. The general agenda is in there. Of course, this is going to be a very interesting Assembly with lots of potential changes in the agenda, according to how fast we can get some of these votes taken and go from there. So that seems to be everything that's come up on the chat that I've caught. Let me just check. I don't see anything really new on my text, so I think maybe, unless somebody has something new, we're ready to wrap this up. The video of this Zoom tonight will be posted on the YouTube site. And sorry, yes, Tim, you are absolutely right. I quoted the wrong thing because I've been doing too many other email things this week, including several emails between Sue Rothmeyer, who, as Bishop Allende mentioned, is coming to supervise the bishop election. The correct address for the who is connected to a Zoom meeting in a group would be office@neos-elca.org. I did also catch one other thing. How often will the session IDs be changed? That will change for each of the potentially 6, if they're ties, bishop elections. There will also be one session ID for the general ballots, and one session ID for some of the other things like the bylaw amendments, and one for the opening adoption of the agenda and rules of procedure votes. Okay, I am not seeing anything else. So there are going to be some glitches in this. As Sue Rothmeyer said, there have been different glitches at every assembly, so we're familiar with that. I see the presiding bishop made some remarks in the chat box about the experience she had with the one bishop election, the synod bishop election she presided over, which, as I said, had its own set of problems. I'm also catching one other thing. We've got someone who's asked, do we know what the first session number is? Because of the fact that you have to be in attendance again at the meeting to be legally there. We will announce those session numbers in real time as we go into things. Again, the other thing is you cannot vote in Zoom. You must be in the Turning app or a Turning web browser window. Please make sure. Tonight, Tim used the screen share features to show you Turning windows in the web browser. That will not happen, so that should eliminate some of the confusion. But that, we think, is one of the reasons some of you were saying you could not see a box. I guess the other thing that I should note is some of you were seeing arrows instead of airplanes. That's, again, a function of what version of software you have. As long as it's there, the critical thing is that you will see something in any multiple choice that indicates your vote is received or was received. In a simple choice, you will get the acknowledgement when the response is highlighted. When it is highlighted up and changes color, that indicates that it was sent and the acknowledgement received back. One other question, and this will be covered extensively by Sue Rothmeyer and David Anderson on Friday. For the call information, how detailed does that have to be? Obviously, last name, first name are simply not enough because there are a lot of people on the ELCA roster with similar names. And even if it's a unique name in this synod, you can't presume that it's unique across the ELCA. So call information has to be sufficient that the Bishop Election Committee can make a unique identification of a person. If they cannot do that, they must void out that vote. So you want to have it specific, but at the same time, please try to make it as short and specific as you can. I think that's pretty much it. Again, we strongly urge you to log into Turning just to make sure that there are no issues with that before Friday. We are opening up Zoom at, no, we are opening up Zoom at noon on Friday. And so you have some time there to make sure you are in. Again, we will also open up the Turning app, but you will get a enter session ID screen when you are logged into that on Friday. Again, I think that pretty well covers it. There will be more explanations from Sue Rothmeyer and David Anderson in particular about the bishop election process. That's probably the most complex thing. Tim showed you response screens for what those flavor choices, color choices looked like. You will not see those response screens. They are too limited for those first two ballots. That data will be downloaded and will be recompiled into a spreadsheet, which will constitute the report. Those reports will be emailed to you and posted on the website once they are available and released, along with numbers from the first ballot that are assigned to each candidate so that you can vote on the second ballot. Those were illustrations for intent only. At this point, I think I've run out of questions. It is almost 8:30, so I think it's probably time to end this meeting. I'd like to close with a brief prayer. Dear Lord, as we head into this weekend to discern your will for the future of the Synod through its deliberations in its assembly, through its election of a new bishop to lead us for the next 6 years, the election of Synod Council, consultation, disciplinary committee members to provide leadership between Synod assemblies. We ask for your continued blessings. We thank you for your continued protection for this church, the Synod, our congregations, our members, our communities, and the world as we face the unique challenges that have been presented this year in medical, cultural, and political areas. We ask for your revelation and guidance as we go into the future. Amen. Thank you all, and good night.